There's a lot to be suspicious about regarding everything involving the Charlie Kirk assassination. Everything from top to bottom. You name it. Candace has done a wonderful job in bringing up the names of individuals, part of the TPUSA family, if you will. That's not my expertise. I don't really follow that. But I'll tell you the one thing that's bugging me. As a lawyer, former prosecutor, this is what is bugging me. First, I'm not going to tell you that Tyler Robinson is being set up. I'm not going to tell you that he's a patsy. I'm not going to tell you that anybody else was responsible by naming names because I don't know anything. We don't know who did it, but we know when the story doesn't make sense, meaning the story is either wrong, we need to flesh out the details, or maybe we need to come up with a new story. As we say in the South, that dog don't hunt. Okay? So here's what I'm doing. I want to phrase this in terms of a hypothetical to better explain this. I want to assume, arguendo, that I am Erika King. I am. I'm going to assume that, God forbid, a loved one, I can't even say this, but is Charlie. And all the facts are the same. I'm also going to assume that I am going to know what I know now. I'm going to assume I'm the same person I am now, and my suspicions and sensibilities are applicable. Okay? First, the last thing I would do is file some kind of a demand for a speedy trial as the victim. Utah is a very interesting place. The speedy trial rule under the Sixth Amendment, along with statutory speedy trial, constitutional speedy trial, is a provision that for the most part is never used. No defendant, nobody, ever benefits from speed. Nobody. The longer the case takes as a defendant, the longer you have to investigate, the longer it has to kind of get out of the system, out of the craw, so to speak, of the society that you're in. It gives people the chance to move on, and it's good to say, oh, is that case still hanging around? Yeah, really? Oh, let's just get rid of it. What do you say? In essence, you could time serve. Now, granted, this is murder. It's a different story. But normally, speed is the worst thing possible. The worst. You want time to go by. You want memories to fade. And in the case of high profile, this is from the defendant's point of view, you want everybody to kind of calm down. For all we know, Tyler Robinson would do much better if, say, the case was brought later on after the world, let's say, became convinced or rather immersed in Candace's opinions and that sort of thing. So for the most part, the rule is when you're a defendant, you never benefit. So remember now, Erika is filing this on the part of the victim. Now, Utah's a different state. They have it's a victim's rights state. So what this does is this doesn't actually act as a speedy trial demand. It just kind of makes a statement for the courts to know, I want to speed this up. Certain informal privileges are provided, but no rights to actually speed the case up. Okay? If, God forbid, something happened to my wife, I'm saying no. Let me tell you what I would do. If this case were, if I were Erika and my wife were, let's say, Charlie, first, I would say, you take all the time in the world you want. I would most probably, if I got to the point where I felt as to questions as to either Tyler's guilt or involvement or culpability or maybe he was involved in a conspiracy, an unwitting conspiracy, I would do everything in my power up to and including by saying, I'm going to join your defense team. Call me as your first witness. And I'll tell you right now, I will put such a monkey wrench into this. They will say, we can't go through with this. Why? We got the victim's husband who's testifying. No, 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 no. If I felt that this was the case, because we know about patsies, we know how this thing works. Second of all, I would crowdsource a kind of a Russell tribunal or a Sartre tribunal. And the reason for this is this. I would have a separate forum, a separate clearinghouse for all of the experts in the country, all of the former snipers, all the former Marines and ballistics experts and witnesses to come forward with their own interpretations, their own files, and I would put together something that used the best of the best, because you watching right now are probably better equipped to handle the intricacies of the case than most people, because you have noticed things like nobody can. Remember the Netflix Making of a Murder, whatever, the Avery, that crazy. Some of the stuff people came up with was better than anything I ever saw. Noticing things, because you remember, you as a trial consultant are also a potential juror. We use plain old people like you and me to be jurors. That's something people have to understand. So that's critical. That's number one. So I would have all these things. I would flood this. If I thought that the case stunk, I would let everybody know, and I would then go either to the Attorney General for Utah or the prosecutor and say, I want to provide this information to you. This is where I would go. I would know the names of investigating agencies. If there was a cover-up, to in fact blame Tyler or pin it on him, you would know immediately. People will tell you, all right, back off. As opposed to, well, tell us who it was. Now, sometimes cops are territorial. Sometimes cops don't want to be told. Sometimes cops don't like civilians coming in and saying, you're all wrong about this. But we all know enough about, ever since JFK, that police sometimes, for a variety of reasons, make a mistake. Maybe the pressure, maybe ineptitude, maybe who knows. But I would make it a point, absolutely, to tell the world that I am the surviving spouse, and this case stinks, which would start to unravel any kind of conspiracy to force this guy to take the blame, to be the patsy, to be the fall guy, if that were the case. Now, what I would also do was lawyer to lawyer or man to man or whatever it was, I would talk to the lead detectives, and I'm saying, okay, let's talk off the record. You tell me right now. You tell me, what should I do? What should I do? Tell me. And show me what you have. Show me. Convince me. Because they could also say, well, let me tell you a couple of things that we can't tell the public. But this is where we know. We have a film of such and such. And there is no particular need at this time for there to be any type of movement to correct the matter. Is a little soon right now. But, I want to tell you what's going on. And if I felt like, that son of a bitch did it, I would say, great. I'd back off and say, get him. And I would withdraw my motion for speedy trial or demanding speedy trial, because I wouldn't want to do anything to hurt the case. And I'm sure that her demand was done in concert with the prosecution's office, which I don't understand this. Because there's too much stuff going on. But something tells me that if they were to show me whatever limited availability I would have, or right to see this, I would probably end up saying, that's it? That's your evidence? What about this, and this? Because a lot of it, so far from what we see, a lot of this doesn't make any sense. This guy he might have been a good student, but he's not so cool and not such a psychopathic killer that he can slide into some Dairy Queen and act like nothing bothers him. So let me recap this just so that you understand what I'm saying. Why she filed this, I have no idea. Again, it's not mandatory. It doesn't do anything, but it's kind of like tells people, speed this up. And when they speed it up, they say, well, look, even Erika wants it. This is the person she wants she wanted at first to forgive him. Okay, well, Erika, do you think he has the right to a fair trial? Do you? Or do you just forgive him? Because a fair trial, due process would would militate in favor of allowing him all of the time to expand upon not just guilt, but in his mental capacity. You need so much time. Experts, you're speeding this up, or you're signing on to the case being sped up. Remember, he's the one who calls the shots. The Sixth Amendment applies to him. I don't understand this. I would do everything in my power. If this were 11, I'm going to say, you take all the time in the world. Unless I thought they were railroading him. Unless I thought they were pulling a Lee Harvey Oswald. Unless I thought they're going to get some crazy person. And I would make sure that everybody knows ahead of time. Do not let him be Epsteined. Do not let him go the way of everybody else. Do not let the press work in concert with, as proxies for, the maybe some, I don't know who, the dark shadow government, agents who were trying to blame him and then dispatch him. Because if they portray him as crazy, if they portray him as a nuts, if they do everything in their power to make him look like he's some kind of a lunatic, and then something happens where he's found suspended in his cell, like the other one, people are going to say, well, there you go. And you know what? Good riddance, and that's the end of it. And that's what I don't want. I want every fact, every single fact. I want every behavior. I want to make sure that every single person on that stage is completely investigated and vetted. People's reactions must comport to what happens when the person that they know and love is gunned down and shot like a dog. So I'd have to go through every one of the reactions to make sure that all of the films and all the recordings are authenticated, meaning that they're the real thing. And I'm going to make sure that everybody who acts a little weird or hinky, we make sure that we talk to. Because I have a feeling, again, if I were the spouse of, if I were Erika, I would say, you're not going to railroad me on this one. You're not going to run through this. You're not going to blame this schmuck, and then all of a sudden the case dies. And why was the entire area leveled and concretized and paved over? What is going on here? Where is Tyler? Where is not Tyler? Lance Twiggs, the fuzzy-headed gay. Where is he? Little questions too. Where are the parents? Where's Charlie's parents? Do they exist? Where's Charlie buried? Where's the police report? Where is the ME's report? Where is the actual forensic report? I want experts. I want to have it independently reviewed. I want ballistic. I want to see everything you have. When you see, I've seen this before, when you have somebody who's involved in a murder, in a shooting, they will take an actual stylus or not a pen, but a piece of anything, doweling or metal, and they will actually entrance, if applicable, they will put it into wounds to figure out trajectory. They will line it up and figure out where this would be. They will do everything there was to validate every finding there was. I would have that particular rifle reviewed to the point where I would know it inside and out. I would have my own experts. Just as Michael Baden was called as an expert to investigate the case of Epstein's brother, which is a little bit different because it was a death too. But I would tell these people, I want to help you, when in fact I'm validating everything. And I would make sure that I put the word out. Can anybody find something weird about this story? I would bring in the best forensics people, the best criminalists, the best crime scene folks, the best ballistics, and people, because they loved Charlie so much, would do it for free. And I would have their qualifications listed, and I would at the end put together my version, not of what happened, but my version that says either Tyler Robinson did it or didn't, based upon the evidence adduced and the evidence kept so far. But the last thing I would do is to put the word out, speed this up, get it over with. No, that doesn't help anybody. It doesn't make any sense. This is one of the things you never, ever, ever do. I will never understand this. Now, let me be very, very clear. Sometimes when people suspect something, they will immediately say, instead of saying, I suspect so-and-so, they will say, the CIA is involved or whoever's involved. That's a different story. That's a different story. That is something completely different. That's something completely, I don't do that. That's not my thing. I don't jump and say apodictically, absolutely, this is what happens. No, doesn't work that way. But what I will say is things like, I wouldn't be surprised if. That's my code for I'm leaning that way. But I don't know. Because you and I are civilians, first of all, as far as this particular goes. We haven't seen any reports. We're just guessing. And sometimes in the scrum, in the heat of the investigation, in the passion that normally accompanies this type of case, we will say things sometimes which don't in any way comport with reality. So while I am saying to you specifically this, while I'm saying I've got doubts, I can't tell you who did what. Could Tyler Robinson have absolutely, positively acted alone without any Confederates, any conspirators, any accomplices? Yes. Is it possible that he acted with Confederates, conspirators, and accomplices? Yes. Is it possible that there could have been individuals who were assisting him or involved in the actual murder itself that he didn't know about? To have almost an unwitting conspiracy. You can't conspire with somebody you don't know. You can't have an invisible or an inadvertent conspiracy. You can't have somebody showing up thinking he's going to do the job, and all of a sudden there's a crack of a rifle elsewhere, and it's another assassin with another rifle, and guess what? Mr. Patsy's left looking like he did it, when they don't compare and contrast things like ballistics. Was there any kind of round or fragment found? Was there anything available? Was there anything found? Anything to systematically or to explain what happened? I don't know this. I don't know. This is one of those things where I'm just, I don't know. There's no way to tell. I can't tell yet because I don't know. I'm a civilian like you are. But I would make it so difficult, and I would make sure that everybody there knew I am not going to be a patsy. I'm not a part of this. Unless, of course, and I'm not suggesting this, but unless, of course, I was, in fact, in on it. In on it, not directly, but in on it in terms of finalizing it and moving along. When famous people are involved in having a loved one gunned down, look at the Kennedys, look at the royal family. Sometimes it's amazing how unwilling they are to really get involved in it. The Kennedys are more interested in Davos and in vaccines than in finding out who killed their uncle and their father. Bobby Kennedy was the only one who even showed the slightest interest, and even that, his public interest was rather tepid. I wouldn't be like that. I would be this, my name is Inigo Montoya, whatever, and you killed my father, and I'm doing Princess Bride, whatever that Mandy Patinkin line is, and I would say, I'm here prepared to beat your dispatch because I'm coming after you. In fact, it's just gone. There's no mention of Charlie at all. Nothing. There's no mention of children, family, burials, big monuments are going to build, and a lot of public appearances, and a lot of acting, a lot of theatrics, and a lot of this perpetuating this same strange kind of Stepfordy affect, but that's for another issue. Bottom line, to summarize, number one, I would never, ever say speed this thing up. Speedy trial demand as a victim. Not that it's mandatory, unless I had reasons to want that. Because number two, speed doesn't help any defendant, and there's no need for speed. There's none. You want all the time in the world to do this. And number three, a speedy trial would basically seal the fate of Tyler Robinson, and that would be problems if he actually had nothing to do with it. And number four, please, you know how people used to always say, if anything happens to me, I did not myself. Remember that? Marjorie Taylor Greene, Alex Jones said it. I didn't myself. If you see anything, I didn't do it. But they're playing him out to be such a lunatic And God knows the medication he's under, and God knows what's happening. Who knows? Let me also tell you something in conclusion. Since the black art of, and I don't want to get too fancy here, but since the black art of poisons, there is something in the biz called noose on a bun. What that means is when you are in a prison system or any kind of a held system, hospital, prison, whatever, and somebody can control the food coming in and out, it is possible for you to ingest something that in and of itself is not toxic. But when combined with something else, it's kind of a binary compound, it's lethal. And the component, the breakdown, the residual elements in tox screens and blood work shows, let's say, elevated potassium or elevated sodium or something, substances that are already there. So it thwarts tox screens and lab results and blood testing. There are so many ways to do it. I am very fearful as this thing moves on because remember, Tyler and our focus on this gets in the way of other processes involving TPUSA getting back on its feet, Erika Kirk reestablishing herself as a new face of this, gets in the way of fundraising, gets in the way of a lot of things. It would sure, not that anybody's going to do it, but it would sure speed things up if he just was a part of the picture and we can just forget about it and move on. He's the only thing that keeps us hanging on to September the 10th. Does that make sense? If you have any questions, put them in the comment section. If you have any comments, put them in the comment section. This is the one thing that's just, of all things, it's like, pay attention to this. I don't like this. I don't understand why there's this need for this. And by the way, Erika, if you really love this man and you want to, not love him, but if you want to forgive him, as is the Christian edict or fiat, you wouldn't want to do anything to deprive him of a due process guarantee, which the Constitution and natural law provide. And you actively participating in this push for a speedy trial doesn't help matters. Okay? My friends, thank you for your incredible thoughts and comments. Thank you for your kindness. Thank you for your works. Thank you for all that you have done to weigh in. This case has so many legs to it, so many derivative issues that I can't wait to get involved more and more in them. But in the meantime, my friend, I ask you right now to please like this video, subscribe to our channel, our humble channel. Also, hit that little bell so you're notified of live streams and new videos. And in particular, also make sure you ask questions that are contained in this section afterwards. Just follow in the comment sections. I've got some questions. Answer them, weigh in, and comment as you see fit.